Hello you guys, Miss Steele here. So this week we've been talking about balance in art, which is one of our principles of design. Sorry, they're hanging behind me. And we've also been talking about art movement. So for this project, we're going to focus on balance, which is whenever you're adding stuff all around your artwork and not just in one space, and it kind of all flows together. All of the parts are interesting. So for this project, you're going to want a big paper. I'm using this big green one. It can be any color. You want a white piece of paper, markers, scissors, and glue. And we're going to basically color on this white paper, cut it up, and then glue it down so it kind of has a wave to it. It's almost like an optical illusion. So we're going to get what we don't need out of the way, and we're going to focus on our white paper. So what we want to do for this is we want to add some diagonal lines, kind of going this way, and color the whole thing in. You can do straight diagonal lines, zigzag, wavy, a combination of them all. So here's a green one. I think I'm going to do wavy for mine. So I'm going to color that in green, decide what colors I want to use. This, and we'll use this one. I'm going to use like the lighter colors. So maybe for my next line, I'm going to make it pink and maybe leave some white in between. And then we're going to move on to this blue. Maybe this cream. So I'm using different colors, and I'm going to go back and color this all in. I just want to show you guys how I'm adding in my diagonal lines. You can do them a little curved if you want. I don't think I'm going to do mine curved. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back and I'm going to color this in. I might leave some white lines in between, but we'll see. So your next step is getting it all colored in. And that's what I'm going to do now. And then we'll move on to our next step. Right, so I have it all colored in. I left a few like little white strips in it just because I thought it looked nice. But you want to color your entire paper using kind of these diagonal lines. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start cutting them up. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cut it in half, cutting as straight of a line as I can. If you want to use a ruler, you can. So I now have two pieces. This one's a little bit bigger, but that's okay. So I'm going to set this one aside because we don't need it for right now. We're definitely going to use it again, but just not right now. And what you want to do is from your top piece, you want to cut one thin strip. So there's my first thin strip, and we're going to glue it right here in the middle of our paper, and we're going to glue it down flat. And I'm going to make for sure that I have this right here. So we're going to glue this one down flat in the middle of our paper. I'm using a glue stick. You can use whatever glue you have. And so then the same way it was facing, we're going to glue this down in the middle of our paper. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start gluing from this point, and we're going to glue it up this way. And then whenever we get this one, we're going to start gluing it this way. So let's start with our top part. So again, I'm cutting thin, straight strips. I like to cut and glue as I go. So then I have my next one, and I'm going to glue this one down, but this time I'm not going to glue it right next to it. I'm going to overlap it just a little bit, and I'm going to make it to where there's about as much as like maybe my knuckle, a little bit less space in between right here. So I'm looking right here. And then it will overlap a little bit, but you want to focus on how much you're spacing out because you want them all to be spaced out the same. So I'm going to keep going, cutting from the part that matches, another small strip, and I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm trying to cut them as straight as possible. You can draw lines if you want before you cut, but I just kind of like to cut as I go. I feel like that's the easiest way, and I also know you guys are pretty talented artists. So again, I'm lining it up, I'm making for sure it has about the same amount of distance, and then I'm gluing it down. And I'm going to keep going with this, that I'm cutting my thin strip, and make for sure whenever you're cutting it you're cutting not from like the top, you're cutting from the bottom because you kind of want it all to match up. And then I am making for sure these are all spaced out around the same, and this is kind of lined up back here, and I'm gluing it down. So I'm going to do one more, and then I'm going to finish this top part because I think you guys might get it. So again, I cut off my thin strip, gluing, and then making for sure it's kind of lined up here on the back, and it's spaced out the same as these. Oop. My hands are getting sticky from the glue stick. So I'm going to keep going and cutting these thin strips and putting them going up this way. So I'm going to keep turning it and doing the same distance in between them. Alright, so now I have my last strip I'm going to add up here, and then we're going to move on to the bottom half of this. So I'm adding my glue, and I'm adding my last piece, and it's going to start hanging off your paper. That's okay. Art can go off. So now we're basically going to do the same thing that we did over here, but we're going to do it right here fanning out. So I'm going to grab my bottom piece. Goes like this, and I'm going to cut my strip, and instead of gluing it right here, I'm going to start doing the same thing down here. So I'm making for sure I'm cutting from what it matches. I wouldn't cut from down here, I'd cut all my lines this way. So I'm cutting across my small strip. I'm going to glue it, and then we're going to put it right here. So making for sure I have the right side, which I do. I'm going to start doing the same thing, but instead of fanning it out this way, I'm going to fan it out this way, and I'm going to make for sure that it's, you know, the right size, and I'm not gluing this side on that side. So I'm going to do it one more. Like this, and then I'm going to glue it. And I'm going to make for sure I have about an even amount of space, and I'm going to keep going with this one. So I'm going to cut my next strip, and then I'm going to glue it. And then I'm going to start it from this side. I'm making for sure there's about the same amount of space in between. And I'm going to glue it down. So just like we did for this top one, except now we're doing it off this corner. So I'm going to cut one more. Well, I'm going to cut it all out, but just one more for right now. And then I'm going to glue it. And making for sure there's the same amount of distance. And it's lined up back here. It's going to overlap a little bit over here, but that's okay. So I'll show you with one more, and then I'm going to finish this out. So I'm flipping it over, I'm gluing it, grabbing it, making for sure it's at the right side, and then I am gluing it down. So I'm going to keep going with my strips now going this way, and if you see it kind of looks like it has a lot of balance in it. So I'm going to finish out right here, and then we will look at it whenever it's finished, and we'll be done. I'm doing my last piece right here, and I cut my strip, and I'm making for sure it lines up correctly, and then I'm making for sure the space is even, and I'm gluing it down, and just like that, we are finished. We did our cool diagonal lines. It's almost like an optical illusion, and it has balance, kind of flows throughout the entire paper. All right, I'm excited to see how your work comes out. I will see you guys all next time. Have a wonderful rest of your morning, your evening, your afternoon. Goodbye, you guys.